Especially when you don't have any prior experience, going through the gauntlet of applying and applying on end without hearing back can be really disheartening, and in general, it just sucks. Don't panic. Here's a guide on the best things to do and how to do them. Hi, I'm Laura, a current product manager working in tech, and on my channel, I share advice on my life as a PM, life working in tech, and other computer science related advice. This video will be split up into two parts, with the first part being all pre-interview work and the second part being all post-interview work. If you're having trouble getting interviews in the first place and you're just getting ghosted by companies left and right, then you'll want to pay attention to the pre-interview section. If you're getting those interviews though, but just never actually getting the final offer, then you'll want to take a close look at the post-interview selection. Let's talk pre-interview. Honestly, with my experience talking with a few folks, I think most people struggle in the pre-interview phase. When you don't have any experience and you really just need to stand out one time, in a sea of other applicants that already have experience, it's incredibly tough. As you probably know, the most important part of the pre-interview aspect is going to be your resume. You know how they say that eyes are the windows to the soul? Well, pretty much the same thing, but a resume is the window to your soul in the job application world. This hopefully one-page document to the student will give the recruiter or interviewer a great insight onto who you are, your personality, your interests, and all your great skills and technical aspects that make you a qualified candidate for this position you're applying for. Honestly and realistically speaking though, companies, when they look at your resume, only want to see and care about one thing: prior experience and showing impact at your previous experiences. Now here's the dilemma. You might say, but Laura, I just don't have any prior experience or prior internships, so I'm just never going to get a full-time job, or I'm never going to get my very first internship because of how saturated the market is. While it's true that there is just an oversaturation of demand when it comes to the big tech levels, there are still tons of other companies down below them that are still hiring interns in off-season internships, or even just for full-time jobs that aren't even having the necessary demand met for them, and as a result, they're just understaffed. Side rant aside, let's get on to the more important part of how you can start changing your resume to be less empty and also to highlight more of your impact on what you've actually done. First, let's focus on any experience or job that could be relevant. Do you have any on-campus job? For example, are you a teaching assistant for any of your courses? Have you been a research assistant, or have you worked in a lab before related to computer science? Are you an engineering tour guide, for example? Are you an online coding instructor or TA, or are you a tech camp instructor, for example, over the summers? Consider if you've done any sort of volunteering or community outreach, such as working with the Girl Scout troop and their new CS program, or working with DigiGirls or other sorts of organizations that work to bring computer science to disadvantaged students. If you led any sort of initiatives at school, such as being the club president of a tech-related club, or other sort of officer position that may have you show and highlight other skills. By the way, if you have any time left in school still, these are all great initiatives to pursue and see if you can get involved with in your community or at your school. I've heard from a lot of recruiters that actually being a TA is a great green flag when it comes to hiring someone, so there you go. With all the other things that I just mentioned, if you don't have any other relevant experience, please put these on there. Even if they're not technically related and you're not making incredibly cool stuff all the time, they are still examples of how you've been involved, how you've shown responsibility, and that you're able of multitasking in terms of being a full-time student and also having a job on the side. If you're also just incredibly involved and busy after school, then it can also help explain maybe why you've lost a few points in your GPA over time because you've been so actively busy and involved with growing these initiatives or jobs that you've been a part of. Secondly, let's look at your projects. If you've developed any cool or interesting, or even just interesting to you projects outside of school, definitely put those on there. This can really help push you into a niche if you don't have any prior relevant experience, especially for a field like ML AI or data science that requires you to kind of have that experience or education beforehand. It also shows that you're pretty self-sufficient, because if you can bang out a pretty sophisticated project all on your own and early on, then you're probably a pretty good candidate when it comes to being a star software engineer. If you don't have any personal projects, then that's totally fine. I firmly believe that you don't have to be a dying hardcore programmer to thrive as a software engineer. Not everyone that becomes a software engineer is incredibly passionate and dying to learn about bleeding edge technology and applying those in their free time. There are plenty of people I know in tech right now that love what they do and they're super hard technologists, but I also know plenty of people that aren't. In any case, be a little bit selective about which kinds of school projects you put onto your resume. If you're still an underclassman though and just don't really have as much experience in terms of projects even, go ahead and pick out your favorite homework assignment or project from your recent classes. It'll at least demonstrate where you are in terms of your progress and technical skills, and will help companies better evaluate if you're a good fit for their current position. If you just happen to not have a project, but you really are one of those dying, passionate, hardcore programmers, then just start. If you have an upcoming break, an upcoming weekend, or an upcoming hour, just figure out what you enjoy doing, find out what your interests are, and see if you can merge that into a project that you're actually passionate and that you enjoy working on. Personally, one of the school projects I didn't put on my resume that I did talk about during interviews was my Operating Systems 2 project. Basically, it led us to build our own operating system from scratch, and it was super impressive and really cool. So I enjoyed talking about it, and I was really proud of my progress and my experience in that class. I personally didn't have any cool or super exciting projects outside of school either, and I still made it okay. Third, are there any trainings or certifications that you've pursued that would demonstrate a particular passion or interest in a given niche or field? If you do, then please highlight those somewhere on your resume. Now, as I mentioned in my last video, these trainings and certifications probably won't be the only thing that will get you into a particular internship or full-time job. If you demonstrate passion and interest in other ways though, or if you just have a particularly good application, then these trainings and certifications can be a good way to act as a tiebreaker between you and the next candidate. Fourthly, are you a part of any tech communities or tech programs that build skills like interview preparation, general programming practices, or other sorts of CS-related skills? These kinds of programs are awesome and also criminally underrated by people who are a part of them. Just off the top of my head, it'd be great to highlight if you've been in the Facebook ABCS program, which is an interview prep course, because you've been selected among thousands of applicants, or the Google Summer CS program for high school seniors, or the communities like Product Buds, Built by Girls, Girls Who Code, that in general work to give back to the community and that you have a community of people around you that are working towards a similar goal. Fifth and lastly is, do you have any other experience that hasn't been mentioned that would help with communication or teamwork skills? These soft skills in tech are often overlooked, but I firmly believe that these soft skills are really what distinguishes a computer science student from a software engineer and a good software engineer from a great software engineer. Knowing how to resolve conflict, make decisions, be an effective communicator, or write good technical documents are a lot of undervalued skills that many people just simply don't have and have trouble growing. If you come in with a strong learning attitude, then you can learn all the technical skills in time, but these soft skills are really hard to teach someone else. I think the last thing I want to say when it comes to resumes is please show impact. Do not just list out your programming languages, the project, and expect someone else to get what you've done. The better that you can clearly explain and also highlight your impact in terms of a project or in terms of an experience, the better off the interviewer and recruiter will be in assessing your skill and strength as a candidate. Just to recap, you revised your resume and filled it up with tons of cool information and also really highlighted your impact. The next logical step is to just start applying so companies can see how great of a candidate you are and call you back for interviews. I know that applying for the very first time can seem pretty scary and intimidating, but after the first couple times, you kind of just get jaded to it all. If you can apply as early as possible, like in those early August timeframes, then you probably have the best shot of being selected for an interview because none of their intern slots or none of their full-time slots have been filled yet. Also, if you just simply don't have much experience, it may be hard for you to be picky and choosy because you don't really know what you enjoy doing, as well as what companies or what kinds of fields are most interesting to you. By taking this approach where you apply to tons of different companies, you can slowly start to weed out what you actually do enjoy and the kinds of companies that might be a better fit for you. I know I mentioned the early August timeframe for big tech companies, but if you are looking at other companies as well, do note that many of them may not open applications until even late winter or early spring for hiring for the next internship or full-time job. If you haven't landed anything thus far, then keep applying and keep your eye out, and I promise you that eventually with your hard work and some luck, it'll all pay off. Depending on how your applications are going, if you're getting some interest from companies and getting some feedback, then you probably want to start practicing your interviewing skills as soon as possible. I know that fitting everything in, from school to work to interviewing to actually preparing for interviews, it can be incredibly hectic and also just stressful and hard on your time. If you're interviewing for software engineering roles, you probably want to start practicing LeetCode, which you can find more about in this video here. You've got an interview lined up, and now what? Don't get stressed out about having an interview coming up and have that stop you from scheduling that interview. I know that happened to me a couple times where I would just intentionally not reply because I got so stressed out, and it only hurt me in the end, so don't do that. If you don't feel completely ready though, you can definitely ask to schedule out a week or two to give you a little bit of extra preparation time. Often they'll be able to accommodate that, but sometimes they may have a shorter time frame and you'll just be a little bit SOL there. Again, just remind yourself to not stress out as much as possible, even though I know it's a little bit inevitable. The second step here is to just get more practice and more mock interviews in. You can personally LeetCode as much as you want and solve all the hard problems in the world, but if you don't know how to explain your solution, you don't know how to actually partner with someone else to solve a problem, then you're also going to be in a lot of trouble. The best time crunch preparation that I found is to just watch mock interviews and see what other people do, and then copy that structure. If they've been successful and they get good feedback on the way that they present, then you should too. You'll also want to perform mock interviews yourself as well, but assuming you're really in a time crunch, watching mock interviews is a good substitute for that as well. Third is just keep rinsing and repeating to get the offer. You've gotten past the phase of getting ghosted, and even if you fail interviews, there's a really easy way to just get better, which is to practice. The more and more you practice, the better you'll get, and I promise you that eventually, again, with hard work and luck, you'll land the internship or job that you've been looking for. Congratulations, and I hope you have a fantastic time and career journey ahead of you. That's all I have for now with getting your first job without prior experience. It's hard to dive into a very specific topic without knowing situations, so if you do have any questions, feel free to ask in the comments down below, or join my Discord and ask me personally in the Ask Laura channel. If you enjoyed this video and you feel like my channel was helpful to you, please consider subscribing and supporting the channel. As always, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again next week for a brand new video. Bye!